In the second class of our ninth week or ninth chapter of our Truth of Happiness Dhamma study. This week, this chapter, we're studying Karma and Rebirth. A week ago, Tuesday, we looked at Karma, and we tried to look at Rebirth on Saturday and got Zoom bombed, a new word for our time. But I think the little changes we made with the password in the waiting room has alleviated the problem. At worst, what might happen is someone could get on and start bombing us again, and I would just have to shut them out, and I'll be able to do that pretty quickly. So we should be good with this. And so karma and rebirth are two sides of the same coin. Karma is a present moment unfolding of past intentional actions moderated by the present level of mindfulness. What that means is that what we're holding in mind. And so from the moment we're born, we start creating a conditioned way of thinking as it relates to the world because of ignorance of Four Noble Truths. And that conditioning can only continue throughout our lives unless we do something to recognize and abandoning ongoing conditioning rooted in ignorance. And that's the key to rebirth. The Buddha never taught rebirth as some type of as a future birth being some type of reward for a so-called moral and ethical spiritual practice. The Buddha wasn't concerned at all about anything that would happen in a future life. In fact, you could say he wasn't too concerned about what's going to happen in the next future moment as it relates to the Dhamma. Almost all religions during the Buddha's time, and of course all of the religions, most all the religions of our time, treat a future birth as the goal of that religion in one way or another. And so when you adopt that as your overarching view of life, in other words, when people adopt a religion, that's usually their overarching view as it relates to their life, no matter how sincere they are about that religion. So once I adopt a view that life stinks, but if I do some good things in a future life, I'll get a reward from that, I can never live a moment in this life, can I? Because each moment is geared towards the future. And the Buddha realized for one thing, the complete ignorance of that, but the cruelty of teaching something that would force people by their own will out of their bodies and literally out of their life. So the Buddha taught a Dhamma to unite a body and its mind and keep it there. In other words, he developed a way for a human being to actually live and be present for their moment-by-moment life. Getting back to the description of karma, the present moment unfolding of past intentional actions moderated by the present level of mindfulness, meaning what we're holding in mind. And if in this moment what I'm holding in mind is still rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths, the only possible thing that I can give birth to in this moment is yet another moment rooted in ignorance. But if I start developing the Dhamma, start deepening my concentration so that I can now hold in mind the framework of the Eightfold Path for what's occurring. Now, as life starts spitting out conditioned responses to what's occurring, I now have the concentration and the refined mindfulness for an appropriate response and to interrupt ignorance in this moment, which is the only moment that I can interrupt ignorance. Another word for ignorance in this context is karma. Another word for karma is anatta. Another word for anatta is the five clinging aggregates. It all resolves, and you heard me say this often, all of this resolves right here, right now, in my mind and my body, and nowhere else. I cannot practice the Dhamma for tomorrow, and I can't practice the Dhamma to fix something that's already occurred. The only thing that Dhamma practice is good for, and it's amazingly good for this, is uniting my mind and my body and allowing me to live and be present for my life as my life unfolds. And so this section, I'm about a third of the way into this chapter. I don't have the page number if you're reading. But this is where the Buddha transitions from describing karma to now he's using karma to describe rebirth. the Eightfold Path is right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right meditation. Using the word right or wrong is not to imply any morality here, except the basic morality in right speech, action, and livelihood. It's to relate to something that is not of the Dhamma, meaning wrong speech is contrary to the Dhamma. Wrong intention is contrary to the Dhamma. Any wrong meditation, pick just about any meditation method that's out here today, and according to the Buddha's Dhamma, it's a wrong meditation. It doesn't mean that it's not meditation. It doesn't relate to the Dhamma. So the words, using the words right and wrong sometimes get people upset, and you're making a moral judgment here, but they're just accurate words. They describe something that is right in accordance with the Buddha's Dhamma and wrong, not in accordance. So in this quote, the Buddha is talking about wrong intention, but the quote is, intention is karma. What I am holding in mind and what results in my intention in this moment is my karma. And if in this moment my intention is to continue towards awakening by holding in mind the refined mindfulness of the Eightfold Path, then that becomes my karma. This is the secret to awakening. To make the difficulties in my life framed now by the Eightfold Path, which means that I'm framing karma by the Eightfold Path. I'm framing the present moment unfolding of past intentional actions that have conditioned my mind. I'm framing them from now a well-concentrated mind and that refined view of refined mindfulness so I can respond appropriately to what's occurring. Excuse me. And what that means, responding appropriately, simply means responding to life as life occurs from the framework of the Eightfold Path, with right view, with right intention in this moment, and the rest of the Eightfold Path. The Buddha continues, with intention, one does karma through thought, word, and deed. It's an interesting line. Obviously, it's a translation, but we do karma. And again, what's the Buddha? What's he referring to? We're increasing our karma in this moment every time that we act from ignorance of Four Noble Truths, and we're decreasing the effects of karma every time we act with wisdom generated through the Eightfold Path. If anybody has any questions, just holler, because I can't watch the screen. But if you're confused about what I'm saying, please let me know so I can explain it better. The Buddha continues, and what is the cause that initiates karma? So some might say, well, it's ignorance, and it really is ignorance. But in this context, the Buddha is describing right where we address karma, right where we can address what we're giving birth to, addressing rebirth. And I say it all the time. We talk about it all the time. Where do we practice the Dhamma? Where do we practice restraint? Wise restraint, skillful restraint, right here and right now. In my life as my life unfolds. That's the only place that we can practice the Dhamma. It's the only place that we can recognize and abandon ignorance. No matter how directed my past actions were rooted in ignorance, I can't do anything about them now, can I? Absolutely nothing. So any thought about that goes that way, that takes my mind into the past and starts analyzing or falling into remorse about past behavior, I've again lost my mind. And I cannot extricate myself from that. I need to take a breath, bring my mind back in my body, and understand the process as it's unfolding right here and right now. In other words, for me to even think about the wrong speech that I might have used yesterday does me no good right now, except as a point of reflection. And I'm not saying we should never think about our behavior, but we should be very careful about getting lost in analysis of our behavior. And what's most important is, what am I doing right now? What is my behavior in relation to the Eightfold Path accomplishing towards awakening or not? What am I giving birth to in this moment? It's just another way of saying practicing wise restraint. And as we develop the Eightfold Path, we know the contrast between acting in ignorance and acting with wisdom. Let me continue. My words. This again relates to dependent origination and the importance of unraveling the links of dependent origination. In other words, contact is I think it's the 5th to 6th link or the 6th to 7th link. And so if we, at that point of contact, meaning as my life unfolds, if I am holding in mind the Eightfold Path and using that to provide a clear and right view of what's occurring, then in this moment, I'm inclining my mind, I'm giving birth to another moment that is rooted in wisdom and will incline my mind, or continue to incline my mind, towards awakening. That is the most important teaching on rebirth. Anything else, in fact, any thought of what can I do to better a future birth, take a breath and bring your mind back in your body. Because that thought itself is rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths. It's one of the main things that the Buddha addressed during his entire teaching career. We went through a series of classes on this too, about authentic Dhamma, or speculating about what a Dhamma practice should be, and using a so-called Dharma practice to establish ourselves in non-physical realms. That's what the Buddha is talking about. Don't give birth to another moment rooted in ignorance that would take a confused and deluded self and take that poor self and stick it into the future someplace for you to meet up with. Imagine that. Imagine how foolish that can be, rather than recognizing, wait a minute, I'm not seeing things clearly. I'm prone to distraction. I'm prone to agitation. I'm prone to greed. I'm prone to aversion. I think I'm prone to deluded thinking. What should I do about it? Take to the Dhamma and awaken. And in this moment, I can end ignorance of Four Noble Truths. Again, the most important teaching on rebirth. Through right intention, supported by the other 7 factors of the Eightfold Path, the ongoing process of ignorance resulting in confusion and suffering can now be brought to an end through wisdom and ensuing right actions. Karma means action. And it relates directly to that way. What actions am I taking in this moment to bring my karma to cessation, to bring the cumulative effects of a life rooted in ignorance to cessation? What am I doing? Hopefully, the only thing that can be done is to develop the Eightfold Path. The Buddha continues, and what is the cessation of karma? From the cessation of contact comes a cessation of karma. So again, we have to understand the context that the Buddha is teaching. He's not saying we should never come in contact with the world. Look at how we're living right now. In the context of what the Buddha is teaching, he's talking about from the cessation of contact with phenomena rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths. And how do we bring the cessation of contact with ordinary phenomena rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths? Bring ignorance of Four Noble Truths to cessation. That's awakening. That's the direct path. That's why the Buddha taught an Eightfold Path, for this sole purpose. Another way of saying ending karma and ending giving rebirth to another moment rooted in ignorance is finally taking control of my life in this moment. And it's an interesting thing that most people in the world today don't even like to hear that I'm taking control. In fact, there's some people that would say even the idea of controlling things in your life, there's something wrong with that. You shouldn't be a controlling person. Of course, that's an extreme view, isn't it? We shouldn't be so controlling that we can't live our lives, or that we start feeling the need to control others because we don't feel we can control ourselves well enough. But we have to learn to control our minds. That's the essence of the Buddha's Dhamma. It's the essence of a mature, awakened human being. That's how I define awakening. That's how the Buddha defines awakening. Full human maturity. Well, a human being that's fully mature is a human being that has control of their mind all the time, no matter what's occurring, because we understand and can apply right view to every situation, no matter what it is. There's nothing left to give birth to another moment rooted in ignorance, meaning another moment where I lose my mind because of reaction to something my mind is conditioned to react to. Clear? And how does one experience the cessation of contact? Through the Noble Eightfold Path. This shows, my words, this shows that the driving force to continue confusion and suffering is described by the Buddha as karma. Another way to describe that is simply being caught up in our own ignorance is karma. Recognizing and abandoning our own ignorance is the cessation of karma. It's the cessation of giving birth to another moment rooted in ignorance. There's something in the back of my mind saying that's a good place to stop, but I'm going to go a little further. This shows that the driving force to continue confusion and suffering is described by the Buddha as karma. This is to point out the importance of being mindful of all thoughts, words, and deeds. This is the purpose of mindfulness in the context of the Four Noble Truths. So we have multiple opportunities to recognize and abandon behavior that is outside of the Eightfold Path, and that is by being mindful of our thoughts, being mindful of our words, and being mindful of our actions or our deeds. And that's that middle part of the Eightfold Path: right speech, right action, and right livelihood. That's why it's there. Right speech, right action, and right livelihood, preceded by right view and right intention, are there not to provide a moral path that will result in a reward in some future lifetime. It's a moral and ethical path so that we don't lose our so we don't lose our mind in this moment. Period. There's no other implication or reasoning for proper behavior, save that ultimately proper behavior, meaning right speech, right action, and right livelihood, is the ongoing expression of an awakened human being. If you want to know if you're there yet, take a look at your speech, honestly, or your actions. And if your actions have you do what Jesse's iPhone did to us, you're not quite awakened yet. And that's all it means. It doesn't mean that you're down some rat hole of immorality that there's no way of escape. Remember, the Buddha met murderers on the street and turned their lives around in the moment by getting them to understand that what you give birth to in this moment is the most important thing. And Angela Miller heard those words, awakened, and he never harmed another soul. He was a bloodthirsty murderer up until that point. And that's the important point to understand about karma and rebirth. The popular presentation of karma is that it's this grand universal system of reward and punishment. And it has nothing to do with that. Karma is a phrase that relates to us understanding our own minds, period. And it's not useful in any other context. I mean, people can use it however they want. The Buddha used a common term of his time in a completely contradictory way than it was applied. It was applied during the Buddha's time, much like it is today. He used that common term, much like he used the word anatta, because he understood that this was such a key teaching that he had to get people to understand the significant difference between what they were harboring as karma and what actually karma is. And when you look at this clearly, this also relates to the third noble truth. The entire power of the Dhamma resolves in this moment, and in that way you could say the entire Dhamma resolves with understanding and practicing karma authentically. Meaning, I understand what's occurring right now. If my mind is distracted or disturbed, I know where that's coming from. I can take a breath. I can bring my mind back into my body. I can let that go and engage, let me say it this way, and enter and remain into right view right here, right now. That's enough talk on rebirth. Dog was making a funny sound. There's more to that chapter. If you haven't read it already, I encourage you to. Excuse me. But I really wanted to emphasize in this class that what I said probably a dozen times. Karma and rebirth is what's occurring right here and right now. And we can end our karma and give birth to another moment rooted in wisdom by what we're holding in mind. And what we're holding in mind has to do with continuing with Dhamma practice. It really is that simple. And all of us are always talking about how we're developing the Dhamma first from the intellectual view that every human being has, and then through our practice, through our ongoing daily practice, the actual experience of Dhamma practice, the actual experience of in this moment giving birth to a moment in wisdom. And maybe that can be part of our discussion if you notice it, if you notice if you can describe what it's like to give birth to a moment rooted in wisdom as opposed to giving birth to another moment rooted in ignorance. And I bet you're happy about this. I'm going to start with Ram. Ram, how are you, Ram?
I'm good. Yeah, this is the time where those opportunities are just every second.
Yeah.
Now that a lot of us are, sort of confined with the people that we normally can kind of get away from. at this point, I see myself interacting more with my family, mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can clearly see how if I react and there's plenty of opportunities for that. If I don't react out of a calm mind, it's coming back to me. You know, what they call instant karma, but yeah, that is karma. It is always instant. It's
John Lennon was right.
You'll reap the fruit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I get to see how this interaction works in a much more intense way. And I've done plenty of missteps in the last week or two, we'll just keep at it.
How many have you noticed any skillful steps?
Yes.
You said you've had plenty. Yeah.
Yeah. I've had some good discussions with Anita, and by taking a breath here and there and not reacting, which is not always the case, but whenever I can, I'm actually able to pass some of that little wisdom that I've gotten from the Dharma on. This is how you can basically reduce stress. Because I see stress far all.
That's exactly it. Eliminate stress.
Yeah, eliminating stress.
Yeah.
If you react this way, there will be stress. Here, I'll show it to you. What you just did, there will be stress. And and if I'm really honest, I'll have to also tell her what I just did. I just caused some stress as well for myself.
Yeah.
So, times of stress are the best times to practice the Dharma.
Absolutely is. Thank you, my friend. Tom, how are you? Well, I'll unmute you.
Wait.
There you are. I was
unmuting me at the same time.
Good to see you, Tom.
Yeah, thanks again. I really there's so many things I could talk about. So I really appreciate the clarity that the teachings are giving me, and it really challenged me this last week actually I like this idea that the whole Dharma, it comes back to that understanding of karma, and it it's both accepting whatever comes in that moment and realizing that it is a kind of a product of what may have gone before. But also it's very empowering, right? It's empowering because you can plant seeds of that kind of awakening in each moment. It's also quite challenging. I think this idea of intention is really, really challenging because, and I've got a question related to that for you actually. Because now, if I look at how I, for example, got into meditation in the first place, there was I had a certain motivation in doing so, right? So I had things that I wasn't happy about in my life, right? Mm-hmm. And that's how I got into meditation. My struggles brought me down this path, which I'm, extremely grateful for today. But even in this, the current sort of lockdown situation, I've been sort of forced to try and, make sense of it in my mind and find kind of meaning in the lockdown, right? So I've even created a little kind of routine for myself where I'm trying to make it as, at least my intentions, I'm trying to make it wholesome in the sense of I'm trying to set aside time for meditation and for, reading about the Dharma, etc., etc. But this comes to my sort of question, which is I can't help but do those things with this kind of or this hope that things will be easier or in my life in the future. And so my question comes back to, because, you know, the reality is that for human beings, like motivation of things being better or easier, let's say, not necessarily better, but easier or less stressful in the future is a motivation for doing things in the present. But how do you get that balance between, you know, the reality that everything happens in the present moment, and that, you know, as you were saying, your teaching is all, or the Buddha's teaching is all about sort of the awareness of the Four Noble Truths right here, right now. And he doesn't care that much about what happens in the future. How do you balance that against the very real kind of human reality of how we are motivated, you know, how motivation works? And yeah, that's my question. I don't know how to sort of relate skillfully to that, and to be motivated to have all of these sort of wholesome practices, which I know are good for me, and yet not to sort of root them too much in sort of doing it just because I think, you know, just like a weight loss plan or something, right? It's going to, you know, do this for 28 days and you'll feel X or Y. How do you relate skillfully to that?
Well, what a great question, important question. You said when you started meditating, I'm not using your exact words, but you were hoping to fix something or add something to Tom that was missing.
Yep.
And that is the difference. There's nothing wrong with recognizing in this moment I'm rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths, and here is a practice that I've been told, and there's a human example that it works, that if I do this, I'll end that ignorance of Four Noble Truths. The result of ending ignorance of Four Noble Truths is I will no longer be creating the conditions that disappoint me or are fearful for me. But that's where we stop. In other words, if I engage in a meditation practice, and I did for many, many years, because I think there's something broken in me, or there's something that I need to acquire that becomes part of me, that will then make me whole or worthwhile or useful, whatever word I want to apply it, I have lost my mind and there's no opportunity to regain it, is it? Because that's a conditioned thought that I'm only recreating through whatever practice it might be. And so for years, I engaged in different Zen meditations, and there's an infinite number. I engage in an almost infinite number of Tibetan ritual, all with the underlying motivation that I got to fix this broken self because there's something that's such a mess in here. It wasn't until I realized that thought itself is contradicting what the Buddha actually taught. So we engaged in jhana meditation and the Eightfold Path to simply end ignorance of who and what I am in relation to the world I live in. Now, as far as the current condition, even as extreme as COVID-19 is, it's still described as the First Noble Truth. Dukkha occurs. As a consequence of having a human life, there's going to be things like this. And this is not the worst that's ever happened, and it probably won't be. It's just part of having a human life. It's not good. It's not bad. It should be addressed. We should do the things that a mature human being would do. In other words, I know the Dhamma. I'm not of this world. Nothing can touch me. Let me go eat a virus. That's foolish. And you deserve what comes from that. I understand that I'm a human being, and I happen to be 64, and I got some other things going on. So I need to be pretty careful, don't I? That's not self-referential. That's just wise. That's being a mature human being. I don't lose sleep over it. I don't worry that I can't, get a mask or whatever it might be. I learned to live in the world in a way that I'm not motivated by fear or greed anymore. And so my mind is left, the word is equanimity. My mind is at calm and at peace, no matter what's occurring. So did I answer your question, Tom?
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I need to reflect on it a bit more, I think. So maybe I'll spend the week trying to sort of reflect on that, and then I'll come back to you. I'll see where I'm at next week with the teachings. But it's, yeah, I appreciate the answer. Yeah.
I look forward to it. And you can, again, email me anytime. If you want to, and it's been linked in the last few emails, read the Karma Sutta again about what it means to take true refuge. And then, Tom, it really comes down to what do I want out of life? Do I want things? Do I want to be noticed? Do I want to be me? Or do I want to be at peace? And that's what I'm talking about right now. Karma and rebirth inform us that this moment I have a choice. Yeah. I can maintain a calm and peaceful mind through understanding, which means there's some things and techniques I need to learn, or I can ignore it all and continue the life I'm living, which has me worried about the coronavirus and everything else you can think of. You know, so we get to the point where no matter what occurs, I understand it because dukkha occurs as a consequence of having a human life. And then I have a practice that brings me back into my body and sees things from a completely human point of view. It changes everything. I look forward to hearing what you have to say next week.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Kate, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. It's nice to see you tonight.
Nice to see you too. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, just to kind of pick up on some of the stuff that Ram was saying, this is sort of like the perfect moment to practice a lot of what we've always been practicing, but this is sort of where you kind of put it to the test.
Sure is.
And I agree that it's sort of, you know, it goes back and forth. I mean, there's a lot of deep breaths being taken in this house, especially lately, especially the longer that this goes on. But what I've been trying to do is just not focus on the future and the things that I'm worried about in the future. I think there's a lot of, like, right now, especially with the people that I'm talking to, like, everybody's very worried about what's coming. And I keep just trying to bring myself back to this moment, take a deep breath, bring myself back into my body. Because all I can deal with is this moment that's happening right now. And that's just sort of a constant thing I've had to remind myself about. But I think it was Russ in one of our classes said that one of the benefits he'd noticed from this practice is just sort of your ability to interrupt patterns that you would normally fall into and stay into for an extended period of time. And now you can kind of catch them and interrupt them and replace them with different activities. And so I have noticed it helping me do that, just not stay stuck so much in just this ongoing pattern of thinking about, you know, this is hard and I'm worried and what's coming, and worry for the people around me. And so yeah, it's just, I mean, most days all that there is to do is just take a breath. That's all I can do. So
good training though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you, Kate. And an aspect of impermanence is uncertainty, because all things always change. We can never know what the next moment's going to bring. And the biggest problem with COVID-19 is the uncertainty about it. If we could know that on August 1st it's done, or we're all back to work, et cetera, it would relieve a lot of the tension that we have. But then when we look at it, the tension's there because we're uncertain, which means if I'm uncertain in this moment, it's because I'm demanding that I know something that I can't possibly know, or I would know it, right?
Right.
So, and the more I get myself worked up about not knowing when can I go out and eat again, or whatever, when can I get back to work? When can I go back to shopping? When can I go to a ball game? When? I've lost my mind. Because the truth of the matter is, right now, I can't do those things. And so it doesn't even have to be the most pleasant thing in the world for me to learn to accept it. In fact, Ram was talking about, you just mentioned it, Kate, difficult times like this are perfect time to practice the Dhamma, because the opportunity to lose our minds is always there. But when we do, it's like my Brother Ken, my friend who had 9 nervous breakdowns, he used to say to me, he says, it's okay to lose your mind, you just get another one. And he's right. We take another breath, no matter how bad it gets for us, individually. If I find myself completely freaked out about what's going to happen, what's going to go on in the world, all I have to do is remember to take a breath, remind myself what I'm giving birth to in this next moment, using the lesson. And if I want to give birth to a moment that is rooted in peace and calm, I'll make myself peaceful and calm. And that's up to each and every one of us. Nothing has any control over how I think and how I feel except me. We could have the, coronavirus 20 could be right around the corner, 10 times worse than this. What are we going to do about it? I'd hope we'd all take a breath, bring our minds back in our body and, relax, take it easy, and then do what's necessary, Thank you, Kate. I'm glad you joined tonight.
Thank you.
Michael, I'm going to leave it up to you to unmute your rooms or your mics.
Apologies.
For what? What'd you do?
I have my my mic muted. But hello to everybody.
Hello, Michael.
As far as just done a little bit that with what Tom was alluding to, I look at things like this, that we don't know what tomorrow brings. We don't know what the next 5 minutes brings. Anything and everything changes so often. We can only live as life unfolds before us and react to those things that are occurring before us and obviously framed by the Eightfold Path. That's all we can do. There's so many times that, Julia and myself, we have things that we've planned. Well, a perfect example is we're all going to go on a retreat at the end of this month, right? And we're all excited about, wow, we're going to go on a retreat. It's going to be our first retreat, and we're excited about it. And then, what happens? We're not going on a retreat anymore. You know what I mean? So, who knows what's going to happen day by day or moment by moment? All we can do is live in this time that we're living in. And as life unfolds before us, and we, again, we frame it with the Eightfold Path, and that'll keep us grounded and keep us going in the right direction. Now, I wanted to actually say, I had put together a whole thing about the aggregates, and but it's a little bit lengthy, but I just wanted to, I think it really adds clarity to our existence. How's that? Clarity, who wouldn't want to hear something about clarity to our existence at this moment? Okay, I was just going to go through it quickly. And just because I think it's extremely important for us to understand the true nature of it. Tim and I discussed the aggregates the other day, and I think I have a little bit more clarity on it. And quickly, I'm going to go through it. So I am aware of the time, and I'm not trying to, speak forever here. But let me go quickly on this. The aggregates again are who we are, what we are here on this planet, right? So form is actually, in its simplest form, how are we to understand form as it is, as the Buddha's words? It's without sustenance, and it's and it goes through the process of fermentation. Okay, and what is form? It's just foam on the ocean, right, John? Feelings are the same. Feelings are a bubble. Okay, they're without substance. They're without substance, and they're void and empty. Okay, the same thing with perceptions. Okay, the perceptions they're a magic trick. No, not a magic trick. No. They're a mirage, okay? And what is a mirage? It's something that plays a joke on our eyes, actually. Fabrications. We can't frame the Eightfold Path, which the heartwood of the Dhamma, with the wood, or not even the wood of a banana tree. Okay, so that's something again that they'll just collapse and fall, just as a bubble will burst. And the last one, our consciousness is the magician here. It's a sleight of hand. It's a trick. It makes us believe that wrong view is right view. But the main thing that all these things have, this process of fermentation, and again, the fact that they don't have any sustenance and they go through a process of fermentation. Fermentation is a breaking down. It's a breaking down into nothingness, it dissolves into nothingness. Okay, so, and this is what we are. We break down and look at us, like we break down and dissolve into nothingness, this human form that we have, and all the things that we, that define it in the aggregates, okay? We just, it's impermanent, okay? The aggregates, you know, in their individually, they are, each of them are impermanent, okay? The, again, like they last, our feelings is a bubble, burst, okay? You know, our perception, the mirage, it's like we reach for that, we reach for the, for that oasis on the desert, and we finally get there, and what do we have? A handful of sand, nothingness. Again, our form that we are, we're aging, we're decaying, we're slowly breaking down ourselves. Okay, and again, how can we? We're going to live. We want to live by the Eightfold Path. Well, we have to frame the Eightfold Path in the heartwood of the Dhamma. If not, it'll crumble and fall away. And that's through the Eightfold Path, through right view, okay? From right view is the way that's the heartwood of the Dhamma, to understand it from that right view, okay? And again, our consciousness, another sleight of hand trick that comes and goes and just makes us believe that something is what it's not. So understanding this, in completion of my understanding of the aggregates, now I understand how impermanent we are. How impermanent we are. How quick our life goes by, as like, look at the universe we're in. We are just like, what are we? We're not even specks of sand in the, on this planet. So we are impermanent, and that's the impermanent nature. And we try to hold on to, the ego. The ego makes us try to hold on to something that is just like a bubble floating in the air, to tell you the truth. So this helped me understand what anicca is, impermanence. And then as I understand what anicca is, then I understand even more so anatta, within anicca, okay? And what that leads to, dukkha, obviously, the interaction or relationship between those three concepts, the three marks of existence. From there, I understand that, and from there, I understand compassion, because an individual. Oh,
wait a minute. How does rebirth relate to what you just said about the five clinging aggregates?
Listen, I know this is okay. I mean,
I just want you to say it. I know you know it.
How does it relate to this?
Yep.
Well, once we become aware of once we're conscious of this process, okay, then once we're conscious of this process, okay, and we are also understand that the ego is what we are not, okay.
You're making it wait. You're making it a little bit too complicated.
Okay,
the five clinging aggregates, as karma unfolds in the present moment, are just to be recognized as you described them. They're just impermanent. And so in this moment, if I'm feeling tension, it's because I'm still clinging to the aggregates. If I'm inclining my mind towards awakening, in this moment, I'm giving birth to a diminishing of the aggregates and a diminishing of our karma. And that's the important thing to understand about that. So there was a great description. Is Julia, I can't tell if Julia's there with you?
I'm in the darkness.
Oh. How come? How are you, Julia?
Good, and yourself, John?
Good to see you.
Happy to see you, everybody. I'm going to answer the question very quick. You said something. You said, "What is rebirth?" Yes.
No. Do you have the experience of it?
Do I have the experience? Well, I wrote it down as rebirth is the experience of a previous state of mind that is rooted in ignorance, And so it's rebirth is actually something we experience because of a previous conditioning that now we are experiencing again. And we have the choice at this particular moment to choose right view.
Yeah. And
to do right action in this particular moment. Otherwise, we again subject ourselves to another roll of the wheel and back to rebirth again. So this is right now a challenging time, and it's challenging because, you know, like everyone is saying, like Kate said and everybody said, that this period, it seems like it's very long and it's perpetual, but it will end. It's impermanent. And so I keep on telling myself that, well, this is going to end. This cannot last forever. From experience of other times in my life, things that I thought were gonna last forever didn't last forever, and they had their endings. And so the thing to do is to try to not go by conditions from the past, of maybe of fear or fear of the unknown, but try to control yourself and just be in the moment and enjoy the moment. Right now, we're all home and we're with our loved ones. Yeah. What could be more beautiful than that you're at home, yeah, and you're with your loved ones around you, and you can communicate with others through internet. So you still have capability of being with other people, just not physically. And then also you walk around outside and you see everything is continuing. Life is continuing. Things are blooming. We're in a beautiful state of being right now in this time of the year. And so really try to enjoy all that, and try not to have a fearful mind of the unknown. Know that it will end. That's what we should all realize. And that's what it's not to say, John, that I haven't lost my mind about 100 times. But I bring it back.
Yeah, that's important. Kate said it well. She's taken a lot of breaths this past week.
Exactly.
And that's a good way to put it. And that means you're practicing the Dhamma. It's not, in other words, the fact that you have to take a lot of breaths now is not a bad thing. It just means the Dhamma is here and we're using it. So that's great.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Thank you for joining. Lorna, did you notice that Philippine accent from Tom?
Yes, I did. It's not a very good Filipino accent. Definitely not a good accent from him.
Tom is in the Philippines, but he came from your neck of the woods.
Yes, I know. I don't know where. I couldn't quite pin his accent down, but maybe he's trying to pin mine down right now. I don't know.
Yorkshire.
What's that?
Yorkshire?
Yes, well done. I don't know where you're from. Where are you from?
London.
Oh, well, there's such a mix of accents in London.
Yeah, I've been out of the UK a long time, so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not really struggling with the quarantining, and you know, I think it's actually a relief from life not to get involved with life. Which makes me realize that when I participate in life, as I usually have been doing, I'm probably more stressed and that's where some of my karma and rebirth, you know, that's probably an area I should maybe be working on, but all you can do, I think, is meditate and abandon when you're meditating. You've just got to abandon your own thoughts, recognize what's going on when you meditate. What are you doing when you meditate? You're just recreating yourself, just verify yourself to, you know, to just keep that wheel going of wrong thinking. And you've got to see, you've got to do it, you've got to understand it. And you've got to sit down and meditate again and do it all again. And you kind of see it in life, that conditioned thinking, you can see it in life. Not all the time, but many times through the day I can see conditioned thinking. So you just abandon it. forgive yourself. You know, it's what happens. It makes you human. That's all. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing to be upset about yourself about or anything like that. It's everybody's the same. We're all doing it, and just abandon. That's the, you know, that word runs through the Dharma all the time. You've got to abandon, and that's it. So and that's what I do, and that's my practice.
Wonderful practice. Let me ask you the question, Lorna, but that I did ask, because I'd like to hear your answer. Do you notice when you're giving birth to a moment that is inclined towards awakening?
Probably not.
Well, think about it for a second. You answer pretty quick. Think about it for just a moment.
Yeah, yes, I do. And I can have good, yes, and certainly when you get hours of that thinking strung together, you have, you know, I won't say quite euphoric, but it's an untroubled, just quiet life.
Yes.
And I've certainly have hours or maybe half a day like that, not quite days and days strung together, but I can do that. And time just goes, you're not arguing with yourself, you're not trying to be anybody else, any different, and you can just have a quiet mind. Whatever you're doing, whether you're pulling weeds out of the garden, it doesn't matter. You just have a quiet mind.
And you recognize that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the important thing. It's important to notice when you're off the path, but it's more important to recognize when the path is working. And you're I mean, that's why I asked the question, to notice it. So, you know, this is, and we talk about this a lot, you know, how effective this practice really is in developing a calm and peaceful mind, no matter what's occurring, including being stuck in your houses for months, you know, work.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lorna.
Thank you.
Kevin, how are you?
Doing well, John. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to see everybody out there. Really liked what everybody's contributed. I thought that you mentioned something neat. We can't be very certain of life in the phenomenal world, but we can be pretty certain of doing our best to maintain the quality of our mind and practicing the Dhamma and following, you know, and practicing the Eightfold Path. And you know, as we're sitting here with these unique circumstances, you asked about rebirth. And, you know, if we're able to understand this path, the Eightfold Path culminates, as the Buddha said, in release, and releasing wrong self-referential views, as we talked about. And if we can notice that occurring, then I think we are understanding that rebirth, we can sort of control that a little bit, not give rise to moments that are rooted in ignorance, and those moments are stressful, and we've got enough stress out there right now. We don't really need to be adding to it. So I think it's a really good way to check in, you know, not only with our Sangha here, but to do some real introspective looks at your practice. And you know, if you're just, you know, where you go throughout the day, you know, you go a lot of places in your mind, and you have this practice to sort of bookend it, hopefully twice a day, but it's really providing a lot of clarity in that. So I thank you for that, and thank you, all of you, for your contributions.
Thank you, Kevin. Glad you joined us tonight. How are you, Tim?
Good evening, everybody. Good to see everyone. So, given what Mike was saying, and also Tom said something that I think all of us often think about, especially when we read about karma. Because, you know, motivation and goals, you know, they are based on future desire. However, I kind of feel that when practicing the Dhamma, and through the Eightfold Path, the three factors of the Eightfold Path, that those goals and those motivations and goals will be virtuous. Otherwise, you're just sitting in a room and meditating and doing, and that's it. We have to live our life, our human life that we're here with what we're doing. And, you know, and it may come a time where we realize that what we're doing isn't what we want to be doing, because it does not interplay with the three factors of the Eightfold Path, and things have to change. I know for a fact that I've changed many things, my livelihood, with my associations, with all the things that the Buddha warns us about through his teachings. So Tom, thank you for bringing that up. I really, and it definitely relates to rebirth. And I wrote down a sentence that, John, I'd like to ask you if this is accurate. Karma is anatta interacting with anicca, resulting in dukkha.
Perfect. That's it. So, you got it.
Right. And it's as simple as that. And
it is.
Again, I don't like to use the word simple, but all those things, and what I said on Saturday real quickly is a little bit explained more, is that dispassionately understanding impermanent phenomena through the three factors of the Eightfold Path will break the reactive chain of dependent origination and will not give birth to the next moment rooted in ignorance, resulting in a state of tranquility and calm, non-reactive, and dispassionate, spaciousness in the mind, and numb to the stress embedded in anicca, free of all suffering and anxiety. So from that, I came to that sentence I said before, which was karma is anatta interacting with anicca, resulting in dukkha, because I think that makes more sense.
Yeah, the only argument is I wouldn't say that it makes us numb to stress. We simply stop reacting to it. In other words, we're aware that right now the world is in a very stressful place. I'm not numb to it, but I'm not affected by it. Yeah. But I'm not, and I don't mean to be playing with words. That's just an important point. Your description of karma is outstanding. That's just what it is. Your description of the Dhamma. So, thank you, my friend.
Sorry, John.
Yes, Tom.
No, just very quickly. I just
Please.
have to get going, I'm afraid, because I've got a business meeting. But I just wanted to say goodbye to everyone and thank you for sharing this moment. I really appreciate it. It's a great start to my day.
Glad you could join us, Tom. We'll see you next week.
Okay. Thanks, guys. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Hello, Matt. There you are. Hello, Matt.
Hey, everybody. Nice to see all of you here. Nice to hear some new friends there as well, and Tom. Tim, I like that little sentence that you said. That's really good. That karma is anatta reacting to anicca, creating dukkha. That's good. I wrote something down here because when we think about anatta interacting with anicca, we're talking about the interaction. So we're talking about contact. So what is the cessation of karma? With the cessation of contact comes the cessation of karma. Contact rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths continues rebirth of ignorance. How does one experience the cessation of contact? They're practicing the Eightfold Path. So again, we're coming back to how we are in contact with the phenomenal world through eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, touch, taste, through the sixth sense base. How are we in contact? If contact is rooted in an ignorance of Four Noble Truths, meaning if it's self-referential, if it's establishing me, mine, in trying to fix me and mine into permanence, into a permanent thing, into a permanent acquisition or whatever, then that's going to be another moment rooted in ignorance. So I just thought that was interesting, Tim, that the way that you put that together, in that it's really implying what John had talked about and what was read in the chapter of the interaction, which implies contact, and how we are in contact with the phenomenal world, how we are in contact with what's occurring. And again, if it's self-referential, if it's about me needing things to be different, then I'm going to suffer.
Well said, my friend. Well said. Jane, how are you tonight?
Hi, John.
How are you?
Calm. Now, throughout this whole COVID-19, I've been calm. I mean, it's been very seamless. I mean, I've just felt calm. And that is remarkable.
Yeah.
Because even a few years ago, I mean, even a small change to my routine would have caused me considerable stress, much less this total, change in routine. And it's 100% due to my Dhamma practice.
Mm. Isn't that remarkable? That answers my question. So.
Yeah, I mean, I am aware that this too is impermanent and it could change to stress, but right now, and like I said, I felt it, I'm just calm. And so I'm grateful to you and to Matt and, the whole Sangha.
Yeah. Thank you, Jane. Thank you. Jen, how are you? Nice, we got all our teachers on tonight. How are you, Jen? You want me to?
Here I am. Hi. Hi. Oh, I just really enjoyed listening to everybody's comments, and my comments have sort of changed as I've been listening to everybody else's comments. I was going to answer John's question in the beginning, but now I've kind of forgotten what it was.
Do you recognize the experience of giving birth to another moment rooted in wisdom rather than ignorance?
Right. Yes. So I was thinking about karma first I was thinking about how we have these ongoing narratives and stories that allow us to continue to redefine ourselves to ourselves and to hold on to ignorant views. And with this practice, we can interrupt that and we can start to recognize those narratives and abandon them. In this particular situation that we're in right now, it's really an opportunity because the ways that the subtle ways that we define ourselves are being stripped away from us, just even every day. And so it's an opportunity to see that arising that Matt was talking about, and sort of that contact and Tim was talking about, where anatta contacts impermanence. And if there's resistance there, that creates tension. But if there's acceptance there, then we experience calm and peace. So that would be how I would explain sort of letting go of karma in the present moment.
Yeah, that's it. And that's where Dhamma practice is practice. Thank you, Jen. Wonderful. All right, another great class. I'm going to finish with Metta, but I'll leave and I'll end the recording, but I'll leave the room open so we can kind of hang out. And so next week's study is on the hindrances. So you'll read that chapter and do a little writing on it. We'll talk about that. But you'll see how the hindrances naturally follow now. What are we giving birth to? And the resistance to developing the path to its completion is reflected in the hindrances. That's why it's such an important teaching, even though it's so very basic. Let's finish with Metta, and then I'll end the recording and we can hang out a little bit. So again, find your relaxed meditative posture. Gently close your eyes and gently close your mouths. And these are the Buddha's words on Metta from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied. Unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing, in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. Radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Thank you all for a wonderful class tonight. Peace.